we are very, 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 very privileged and very fortunate to have Lisa joining us tonight. I know we had many discussions around this whole thing on teaching versus facilitating and leadership and coaching and mentoring, and I think there's so many different terms and so many different interpretations of how we do things, and I think we're all very eager to just always get to a place where we can learn new things and to also just gain from the insights of other people. So we are very fortunate to have Lisa with us, and I've asked Lisa to just talk to us a little bit around facilitating groups. Lisa, you can probably give us a little bit of background on yourself, but what I know of Lisa, she's like an extraordinary woman of God. That's the first thing, which I must give her. She's always just shining His love. But she's a facilitator, a coach. She's been in ministry as well. Great trainer. She's passionate about leadership, and she is studying again, which I think is just incredible. But she can tell you a little bit about her life and her journey. But Lisa, thank you so much again for joining us and just taking the time, and just for your willingness to also just share some of your insights and just things that you've seen on facilitating groups, and especially when it comes to small groups. I know this is a bit different because it's online, and sometimes some of, I think, our challenges might be a little bit different compared to when it's face to face or we actually have someone in your house. But I think, as we've all spoken before as well, I mean, it's an incredible platform, and the teaching that happens cross denominations, cross culture, cross borders, and this whole thing of having people of all ages in one group, going through different seasons, different situations in life, and then that beautiful thing that's happening where we go back to Titus 2, where it's like all the women teaching younger women, or more mature women teaching less mature, and just I think doing life together. That's always one of the things that is just standing out of these groups, and just to be there as support to one another, and just to take hands and do life together, but all based on biblical womanhood. And I think that's the beauty, that's just connecting all of us together as well. So Lisa, thank you so much. Before I hand over to you, can I just quickly pray for us, and then we can continue with this meeting. Father God, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you that we can again just take a little bit of time out of our very busy schedules and our very busy days, and just come and say thank you that we can be together as your set apart chosen daughters. Thank you that you have chosen us. Thank you that you have a magnificent plan for each one of us. Thank you that we can actually just be together in this and on this journey where we just discover new things, and where we can really just take the hands of women across South Africa and even some in overseas countries, but where we can just come together and worship you together. Our main purpose and our main focus is, first of all, to glorify your name. You are just incredible. You are mighty and powerful, and we just sit in absolute awe of all that you are doing on a daily basis. Thank you that you are our provider. Thank you that you are our healer. Thank you that we know that you are faithful and that we can trust you, that you will provide in our needs, and that you have a special plan and a special purpose for us. Thank you that we can be part of a bigger story, and that you are involved in the details of writing each one of our stories as well, and this story as a collective together. Thank you that we can learn from each other. Thank you also for Lisa. Thank you that we have the privilege of her sharing some of her insights with us tonight as well. I just want to ask you to bless her, to bless her entire family, to bless everything that she's busy with, the studying and the work and everything that she puts her hands to, Father God. Also use her as a vehicle to speak through her. And again, thank you just for this amazing opportunity. We love you, and just open our ears and our hearts to be able to hear what you also want to say to each one of us today, and just bless this meeting and every girl on this meeting today. Thank you so much. We love you. Amen. Thanks, Lisa. So I'm going to hand over to you. Hello, Mersha and Marinda, just saying hello and wave, and then I'm going to hand over to Lisa. So yeah, we can start to hear what you want to share with us, Lisa. Thank you so much again.
Great. Thanks so much, Mariana, and hi to everyone. Hope you can all hear me and hope all is well in your world. It's always so much fun to be together with other ladies who are leading and who have a heart to just draw other people to God. What is so amazing about small groups, whether they're online or face-to-face, is we really are carrying out the mandate that Jesus left us with, just to make disciples and to show people how to walk in a way that is honoring of God, and to help people see how to follow Jesus, and to help people to see how to reach out to other people for him. So this is something that's very, very close to my heart. As Mariana said, I had many, many, many years in ministry, and my focus during those years was pastoral ministry. I had a lot of time training and coaching people who did counseling and pastoral type work, and also did a lot of training with small group leaders. So I think that's where Mariana and I just got chatting, and we realized that there was just so much in common, and that there was an opportunity just for me to pass on some of the bits and pieces that I've learned about facilitation. As Mariana said, I've gone back to varsity at the moment. So the big joke is that this dear old lady has gone back to Wits, and I'm busy studying further in the area of psychology, because that's an area that I love. So I'm growing by the day, I'm learning things by the day, and at the age of 47 I go to Wits with my 19-year-old daughter every day. So can you imagine how much fun that is? Anyway, delighted to be here, delighted to just talk to you about some of the things I've learned. And the way I'd like to use this time, I see it's 12 minutes past 5, is I'd like to talk for perhaps about 20 minutes. And then I've sent Mariana, and I'm sure she sent you, a facilitator's cheat sheet, which is just going to summarize some of the things I'm going to talk you through. And hopefully it will become a sheet that you can stick up on your fridge, or stick in your Bible, or stick somewhere close to wherever you are when you do your WOW meetings, so that you can look back and see, how did I do in terms of this funny thing called facilitation, this strange F word that seems to have jumped into my world. And we're going to talk a little bit about facilitation, obviously, this afternoon. So just to define facilitation as opposed to teaching, facilitation, the word means to make it easy or to ease a process. And that for me is quite key, because in facilitation, it's not so much about me getting a whole lot of information across. It's about me carrying a group through a process toward a desired outcome. In other words, I'm not just thinking about sort of rattling off a whole lot of information, or ticking off, telling people some sentences on a list, but I really want to create an environment in which people are going to learn and discover the things that I want them to discover, and they're going to want to apply those things, because the heart here is not just sharing of information, it is inspiring life change. And there is always an application. There is always something God desires for us. You know, in James, where it says, we mustn't be like the man who looks in the mirror and then walks away without changing anything. But we want women who we are leading to come away and change stuff in their lives. And we don't just tell them to change stuff, we talk about how this is going to happen. What does it actually look like when we're obeying the scripture, when we're embracing it and we're holding on to it? So that's kind of the heart of what we're doing, which means that I'm not just aware of my outline or my questions that I'm going to ask for discussion. I'm aware of that, but I'm aware of the way I'm coming across, and I'm aware of how everyone else is doing. And this is the trick. It's hard enough in a room with some ladies sitting, chatting over steaming cups of coffee, but you have this glorious challenge of doing this online. So you're watching people's faces, you're watching their body language, you're kind of making a note, hang on, someone's been very quiet for the last 45 minutes. I need to check, are they still with me? Is something worrying them? Is something upsetting them? You're carrying a group through a process toward a desired outcome, and that's the heart. And the secret is that you have a process that flows, and obviously that involves a number of factors, so we're going to talk about some of those. Three of the big things that you will obviously be doing is, firstly, designing and planning what you want to do, and that is absolutely critical. Even though you're not the one who's going to have all the airtime, you need a lot of time to plan what's going to happen in that hour or however long you've got. So the designing and the planning is so important. And that is done against the backdrop of, what is my goal? What do I want to cover? What do I want these ladies to come away with? What change do I want to spark in their lives as a result of this discussion? So it's designing and planning, then it's actually the guiding and controlling of the discussion. And that's a real art. And some days when I lead a small group, I nail it. And other days I come away and I feel like, don't know if I quite got everything across. I don't know if everyone was really engaged. So sometimes you get it right, but as you go, you learn. And that's part of the fun of this adventure of leading. And then the third big thing is summarizing and drawing it to a close. The thing is, this isn't just sort of a social discussion. Obviously, this is a guided discussion. When you're facilitating, it's a guided discussion where there's a plan and there's a conclusion you want to come to. And that means that at certain points, if it doesn't seem to be going the way you want it to go, you might need to sort of do a bit of a course correction. Do I need to give a little bit more information? Do I need to rephrase a few questions? Do I need us to take a few steps back so that more people will be engaging here? But I'm thinking the whole time, this is a process. I'm watching my clock. I'm watching the people, and I'm thinking, am I getting to where I really want to go in this discussion? So just a few thoughts on designing and planning. Obviously the outcomes, and I'm sure you'll have an outcome on paper in terms of what you want to achieve, but to also pray, to ask the Lord, what are the revelations? What are the truths that I have grasped in this area? What are the truths that I would like these ladies to grasp? What would I like them to go away thinking, I'm going to change this? So as you can imagine, you're not just appealing to the cognitive or the head domain, or the intellectual domain of the ladies, but you're appealing to their values, to that deep part of them that shifts and changes when they experience things. And then in the summarizing, as I said, it's to go back, it's to summarize what the main points were of the discussion, to talk about the main point, and even to probe what were the main things that were learned. What are the things that people are going to go away and do differently as a result? How could they measure whether they're being successful in doing that differently? And is everyone okay to be checked up on again next week? So that there's that sense of accountability. How did it go? You know, we chatted about prayer last week. How's the prayer gone? We all committed to a certain amount of prayer at a certain time and place. How did we go on that? So it's that summarizing and bringing it to a close as well. And that's really, really important. A couple of other thoughts when designing and planning. Also to think about what if scenarios. So what if someone stops you in the middle and asks a question and it's clear that they really don't know what you've been talking about? What if someone says something really provocative? In other words, something that shocks people. What if someone is upset about something that someone else has said? How could that be handled? Are there any things that maybe some of the ladies won't fully understand? Is there a different way I could express that to them? So to think through some of the what if scenarios. I'm sure you've had times in your meetings where something happens you didn't expect. And everyone's sitting there and you're all thinking, oh my goodness, what do we do now? How do I answer? What question do I ask? To think through some of those things and how you're going to respond to them. Very, very valuable as well. And then I'm sure the whole thing of setting ground rules for engagement. This is something we do obviously in a face-to-face group, but I would imagine even more important in hosting an online group, to be able to say, this is equal airtime. There are no dumb questions. This is a no judgment zone. We share what we think about things. We also share what we feel about things. And we're open to one another's input. So you might have those. You might even as a group discuss other ground rules. What are the rules by which we talk? How do we do this? We don't want one person to dominate and to talk solid for 5 minutes while the others sit quietly. When I ask for a round of what are your thoughts on the main theme of the Sermon on the Mount, we've each got a 30-second gap. Tell me, what are your first thoughts? And then to be able to go around and to lead the way in that. So to say, well, my thoughts on it are X, Y, Z, and to only take the amount of time you've asked people to take in their responses, and also to model a certain amount of vulnerability in that sharing. When vulnerability, Brené Brown talks about vulnerability as the most accurate measure of courage. And I love that quote. And there's something about vulnerability when it's modeled that frees everyone else up to be vulnerable as well. And so those are some of the rules of engagement, the ways we connect with each other in a discussion, which can be replicated online as well. Okay, then then the other thing, getting things flowing. I'm sure you're all used to using icebreakers to get things going with a discussion, to think of the kind of questions that'll get people talking. If you want to search online, you can Google icebreakers, good small group icebreakers, good Christian icebreakers, and you'll find some absolutely brilliant ideas to use there. And then to keep things flowing and to keep the momentum going. As you're watching people, if it looks like everyone's getting more and more tired and they're sitting further and further back in their chair, or they're disengaging, to be able to say, I've got a quick question, and to get everyone interested and engaged again. You want to keep that sense of engagement, that flow, that energy throughout that discussion. That's really important. You might even say, okay, everybody stand up, touch your toes, turn around, come sit down again. I feel like we're all losing each other. It's been a long day. Let's get back into this, or whatever it is, just to keep people aware of what's happening. Then 3 key words: listen, engage, and include. And I would even say, because you're online, I would say observe. In other words, to be able to listen to what people are saying, but observe people's body language, just as they'll be observing yours. Observe people's body language and work so hard to include them. The amazing thing with all of us is that when we come away from a discussion, we remember far more clearly what we contributed than what anyone else did. And that is why it's so key that everybody talks. Everybody talks, even if they feel like what they've got to say is obsolete because someone else has said something similar. But there's something in our brains that happens when we are participating and engaging in a discussion. So to get people involved is absolutely critical, and it's something we should almost rate ourselves on at the end. Okay, then in terms of another note I made, in terms of interventions, if there's something that you need to correct, or if someone says something that you feel is just a bit inappropriate, to be absolutely gentle and loving in that, to give that input gently, almost in a suggesting tone more than authoritative tone. We'll get a far better adult and godly response than to snap or to react, even though sometimes it is hard. If someone responds or says something in a group that is difficult to handle, that the touch and the way we manage ourselves as leaders is full of truth, but full of grace and mercy at the same time. Okay, the other thing to really be aware of is just to keep a very close eye on timing. when you're in a discussion in a face-to-face group or in an online group, you're the one who's responsible to use that time, not them. And you know what us ladies are like? We can all ramble on about something that we're excited about, and then we think of something else to add, and we think of something else to add. And the need to watch the time and be aware of what you'd like to get through in that period. And if someone is going on, like here I am droning on at you, if someone is going on, to be able to just gently interrupt them and say, gee, thanks, Lisa, that was brilliant. Janine, what did you think of that? Do you agree with that? So to be able to gently, lovingly interrupt when someone is going on and has sort of lost track of how much time they've taken, and just to be aware. The other thing with time, I found, is to when you've started an area of discussion and you don't feel like it's going anywhere, you feel like you're going round and round, for you to be responsible for that and aware of it, and kind of park it and start something new and say, we're going to come back to that. I don't feel like we've quite settled on a resolution on that. Let me ask you another question, and maybe this will help us with that. So to monitor the energy and the direction that is happening and how the ladies are participating is very, very valuable, because in facilitation, far more important than me running through my points is me asking the questions that are going to help the ladies to discover what I want them to discover. And it's to guide that conversation and to guide that discussion so that they start saying the things almost as if they thought of the things that I want them to think of. So they feel like they've come across those truths that I've planned for them to come across, because then there's retention and then there's an application in that area. Okay. Then always, as I said, to be on the lookout for people who aren't participating fully. Are they uncomfortable? Do they disagree? Do they perhaps not fully understand a word that is being used? A lot of us feel intimidated when there's a big word used and we're not quite sure what it means, and so we become quiet. So the value of defining what you mean, defining some of the ideas so that people can better understand and participate. I think that's lovely. And then just again, the non-verbal behavior of the group and your own non-verbal behavior. You watch how they're responding to see how engaged they are, and be aware that they are watching you. And your actions and your facial expressions say far, far more than your words. So just to hold that as a reality as well. A couple of thoughts on summarizing, the need to just go back. So towards the end of the meeting, it's to go back and say, Janine made this brilliant point about intimacy with God and the power of being hidden in a place of intimacy with God. And then Leonie spoke about the difference it's made to her to be listening to lots of worship music in the car and just connecting with God in those moments. And I thought it was so good that we all have certain patterns and things that seem to open us more to the presence of God. So you see what I mean? You're pulling on things that people have said, you're rephrasing, you're going back. And if you're not sure that people have got it, to even help them to help you rephrase it. You want everyone to be on the same page. You want everyone to be applying themselves to what you've covered in that session. If you're not sure, to just clarify that you understood what they were saying, and that they understand the way the group has moved and the space the group has moved to in your discussion. And then sort of the next point then is to ask them what the commitment is in terms of the action, just like those beautiful wow messages that we receive early on a Saturday morning, because Mariana's up before the rest of us and sending it out. Those action points are, what are we going to determine to do? What are we positioning and posturing our hearts to be committed to up until our next meeting as a result of what we've discussed? And to have people share about that and commit to what they want, how they want to behave and respond to what has been discussed and to what in their hearts has been triggered and what in their hearts has been energized. Get that commitment. Find out what people would like to change in their lives in response to God, in obedience to the word, and then follow up on it. Don't just say that's great and then forget about it. Make a note of those things, and if possible, have your notepad next to you. Make a note. This is what Janine wants to change. This is what Mariana said she's going to commit to do in the next week, and then check up on them as well. The other thing that might help is to write down the names of the ladies in your group, and each time someone shares, put a tick next to their name. And at the end of the meeting, see that most people have spoken the same amount of times, just to see that there's a balance in the sharing of airtime. I think that's a key issue there as well. Okay, then if we move to the facilitator's cheat sheet, this is something that if you don't have it, it's probably on its way to you in an email or a WhatsApp. What I've done is put together a couple of bullet points summarizing some of these things that I've said. I'll go through them briefly. The first one is to constantly think in terms of the meaning of the word facilitate, which is to make easy or to ease a process. I'm providing an environment for a process of spiritual growth and transformation in the lives of these people. And then the whole thing of group process. In other words, as a group, we're journeying, and I'm holding this process. I'm holding it carefully. I'm saying one thing. I'm asking a question. I'm checking up on someone who's quiet. I'm noticing someone who's very, very upset because perhaps something, there we go, there's the sheet. Something has upset them in their family or in their work. And obviously there's a sensitivity to all of these things. So that group process, and you'll see there on the cheat sheet in brackets, I put that there that it is a Mind Tools definition. Mind Tools is a fabulous website with information on all sorts of wonderful soft skills used in the business world and in ministry type settings. And if you want to go and have a little look there, I'm sure you'll find some very useful ideas. Then I mentioned the next bullet point: in designing, planning, and guiding the group discussions, the desired outcome is a priority. So I'm constantly, almost like a GPS. When you go off route, you see it says it's recalculating. And then it recalculates the route. And the conversation might go off on a little bit of a rabbit trail. That's fine. You're the GPS. You recalculate the route and bring them back to what your goal is in that discussion. We can't expect the people in the group to do that. We're the ones who are responsible for that. Then good open-ended questions are your most important tools in facilitation. And I'll go through some questions with you there now. Then the next one is to think about and communicate the ground rules. How do we conduct ourselves? What are the rules for operating? Everyone gets to talk. There are no silly questions. Everyone's opinion is valuable. This is a judgment-free zone. We just accept each other, warts and all, and we're growing together, etc., etc. Next point there is to prepare for what-if scenarios. Then those 4 special words: to listen, to watch, to engage, to include, and to summarize. Next point there is to use time very carefully. Time is so precious and you want to maximize it. And then the last point, just an interesting one, regarding pastoral needs. My role as a facilitator and as a group leader is more that of a nurse than a doctor. If someone presents with symptoms and you think there might be serious depression, you think there might be some kind of something heavy going on in their marriage, you think that there is something going on that could be dangerous in someone's life, you're not the doctor who is going to diagnose and treat and feel a sense of responsibility to sort out that condition that person is showing. It's so important that you guide the person to say, you know what, perhaps there are depressive type symptoms, to say, I can see that you're feeling very down. You've been crying. Thank you so much for being brave enough to come in on this conversation. Can I suggest that you perhaps speak to a pastor or look into seeing a counselor, or can I help you to find a counselor, perhaps someone in your area, or a psychologist, or someone who can pray for you and minister to you. Don't feel that responsibility to fix everything and to make everything right and perfect. I had a funny incident about 6-8 weeks ago. It was a Sunday. I was eating breakfast. I dropped a jam jar. It landed on the plate. The plate shattered and it pierced my arm. So off we went to the hospital, and there was a nurse there to help. And every time I asked her a question, she said, yes, I think so, but let's wait for the doctor. I think so, but let's wait for the doctor. And she obviously had her opinions, but she wanted to wait for that professional opinion. And the doctor came and he stitched me up and he did what he needed to do. But the nurse knew what she was qualified to do and to give. She didn't feel the pressure to solve the problem completely, but she could look after me in the meantime before I could get to see the doctor. So see yourself more as a nurse than as a doctor. Don't feel the pressure to solve everything. And you know that there are resources available to help those people solve those issues and solve those things. So do relieve yourself of that pressure to solve those things. And also, you don't want to get yourself into trouble because of suggesting the wrong thing, and then a situation gets worse, even though you were sincerely trying to help. So just to be really, really careful of that. Then in the next little section on that sheet, I've put a few what I call clever questions, which are great to have in front of you when you're facilitating a discussion, and you can see them on your screen. These are great to get more talking happening, because what you want when you're facilitating is greater self-disclosure. You want people to share more openly. You want to understand why they're feeling the way that they are and to explain. So the first one is help me understand, to be able to say, well, help me understand why you said that. Help me to understand why you're feeling so upset because that happened, etc., etc. Another one, tell me more about that. Next one, let me make sure I understand what you're saying with that comment, Janine. Then another one, I'm curious, Lisa, why did you respond so quickly? Why did you laugh about that? Why do you not seem so stressed about that when the rest of us feel stressed about that? What's your secret? So I'm curious. Another one, could you describe further what you mean? The next bullet point there, what assumptions could we be making that are holding us back? Perhaps we are stuck with certain assumptions and mindsets that are limiting us in where we're going. Now, these bottom questions are really good coaching questions, which become good facilitator questions when you're leading and guiding your group. Next one is, are you aware of any mindsets or habits or structures or relationships that could be holding you back? And that's, of course, a great question when people are wanting to respond to God, but they're, for some reason, holding back. For some reason, they keep compromising. They keep getting frustrated in that process. To be able to say, what's holding you back? What do you think is blocking the way? And it's so much better to ask that than to say, well, why can't you do it? Why? The word why immediately gets all of us on the defensive. We all feel like we are fumbling around trying to explain ourselves. But to be able to say, what is it that's holding you back? What is it that's getting in the way? Is such a kind way. And in that atmosphere of love, we all melt and we all actually want to honor God and obey Him completely. Then second to last bullet point there under clever questions, what behaviors need to be acquired or changed to realize your goal? Or actions do you need to take if this is really going to happen? What really needs to change? And then the last one, rating yourself out of 10, how much energy do you have at the moment to make the changes that we're talking about? Because often people say, yes, totally want to change my devotional life. Totally going to read, 10 chapters of the Bible every day. You know what everyone's like on the 1st of January. But then to say, how much energy do you have? How realistic is this? We don't want people to get disappointed and then to feel ashamed and like a failure because they didn't do it. What is realistic? That whole thing of goals that are attainable and realistic is really important. So keep those questions up your sleeve. They are great to draw people out, and they're open-ended because it's gonna make people think more. Something else that is a lovely trick question to ask, and not just when you're leading, but with your family and with your friends, is to say, well, what do you want to think about, or what do you want to work on, and what do you think? And then to let people share what they think, and then to say, and what else do you think? And you will be amazed at what comes out. When we create an environment in which people are going to think and give of themselves, the most incredibly amazing things come out. And the reality is, you are not the professional on the people in your group. They are the professionals on their own lives. They know their situations and what they can do. Okay, finishing off my little blurb before we take some questions is a little bit of a checklist there. And I just designed that. I thought, put that somewhere visible, make a few copies of it, make a copy for every week. Maybe you can even feed back at some of your monthly meetings on how you're doing in these areas. How well did I do the following things? And you can rate yourself out of 10 and see how you improve over the course of a month. How did I follow up from the last meeting? How well did I do designing and planning the process? How well did I guide the group process? How well did I achieve the desired outcome? How well did I keep things flowing? How well did I include all the participants? How well did I handle any unexpected moments? How well did I use the time available? How well did I model vulnerable sharing? How well did I highlight application for life change? How well did I manage any pressing pastoral needs, and perhaps what do I need to do about them? And then how well did I summarize and close the discussion? So there you have it. That's a little cheat sheet that kind of summarizes the essence, I think, of facilitation. And if you can keep a look at that, put it somewhere where you'll read it often, and hopefully it'll give you some great ideas. Back over to Mariana.
Thank you, Lisa. That was very, very insightful, and I think we all learned so much from it. I mean, the one thing that's really just standing out for me, and I want to actually scream it, is like creating a space for people that foster transformation and spiritual growth. That is a beautiful sentence. I'm absolutely in love with it. But thank you so much. I think there's so many pointers that each one of us made, and so many things, practical things that we can take into our groups. And I think we're going to look different to our groups next time that we actually facilitate any group sessions, definitely. But thank you very much. I think the other thing is what you said, we take away what we contribute. And I think that's something that we sometimes overlook. We try to all contribute and think this was a good or bad meeting, depending on how I did. Whereas sometimes the biggest learning is when that aha moment is when someone actually says something themselves, not something else that you thought or that you actually said. So that's just incredible. Thank you so much. Are there any questions for Lisa? We all have a great opportunity now to ask her some questions, or some things that maybe sparked while she was sharing some ideas, or something that stood out for anyone. There must certainly be something. Val-Marie?
Lisa, I don't know, maybe it might sound a bit silly, but when you were talking about ground rules and things like that, I think it's quite important, and we didn't necessarily do that at the beginning, to talk about what are ground rules and things like that, but not so much related to that. Something like people who move around and about, and sometimes their focus is somewhere else. For me, it doesn't bother me a lot if people are, because I know life happens and people are busy, but then now someone in my group has said, like, also because people dial in, not all of them from their laptop, so it's not always steady. So someone in my group told me, she was walking around while we're in the meeting, and it's grabbing my attention the whole time, so I can't focus on what we're talking about. But, for her, she's the other lady's engaging, and she's chatting, and she's going about, and all of that. So it's not like she's not focused, but then how do I handle it? Because this is something that bothers me personally, but if it has an effect, what's the best way to talk about it?
I think that's a great question. Wow.
I think that's a stunning question. I think that if it's not worrying you, that's great. Is it worrying? I wonder if it's worrying anyone else in the meeting. Perhaps if someone else has mentioned something to you about it, there are a couple of things that you can do. I don't know if I would definitely not confront it or talk about it in the meeting with everyone involved. I would possibly speak to her on her own and say, sure, I know things are so busy, but it's a little, maybe not even to say the other ladies are complaining, because then she feels that people have been talking behind her back, but just to say it's a little bit confused, a little bit distracting with all that movement. Would it be at all possible for you to, when you sign in, be more engaged and more stationary so that everyone can focus? The other thing that you can do, and this is something that we've done with great success in face-to-face groups, is when someone is perhaps moving around a lot, but they're engaged, to be able to say to her, can you help me in the discussion by participating, and help me notice if other ladies aren't contributing? So you're kind of pulling her in and almost raising up another leader, but you're saying, help me notice if anyone's not participating. I know you're engaging and you're able to, manage multitask, as us women need to do. If you can just help me with holding the discussion. Can you help me watch? So just to give her almost like an off the radar pastoral role. So maybe she pops up and says, gee, Jackie, I notice you haven't said anything. Things that maybe you, Valmarie, wouldn't have noticed, So almost to give her a task within the meeting, and to say, could you maybe tick off for me every time someone talks? I just want to make sure everyone talks. And you'll find then that she's that much more engaged in the meeting, because now she's assisting you in the meeting. So those are two things, and I wouldn't address it with the whole group present. We don't want her to feel any sense of shame, any sense of judgment from the group, because then people just withdraw, and that's not necessary at all. But to be able to, with her on her own, say, shots, a little bit distracting when there's a whole lot of movement. Or to say, won't you help me next week? Can we try something next week and just see how it goes?
I think that's great advice, Lisa. I think that perhaps some of the challenge that we have, because it's so convenient and because the platform actually allows us to continue while we're busy with other things, we can still listen and still get some of the teaching and some of the experiences shared. You also don't want to really take away from that experience. So sometimes it is that I'm just too busy, or I need to drive, and while I'm driving, I am engaged. It's just I'm busy listening to what you guys say, or I just need to finish something, but I am still participating. I think that's probably one of the benefits also that this type of platform give us on top of things like a face-to-face, where you actually need to sit and be in a physical meeting. So I think, again, there's a clear line, and I think it will probably differ from group to group. I think in some groups it's acceptable, and that's just the way things happen, and in others it might be, but I really need you to now sit, or it's distracting for someone else. So again, I think there's, and that's perhaps some of the questions, Lisa, that I think we all struggle with. It's, you don't want to set like a rule book and now we need to play according to these rules. But there's also some, I think it's just like little things, like put yourself on mute, then it doesn't distract anyone else. Or, there's little things like that I think that we can do, and maybe some practices that we as leaders start to show so that others then can follow. Because, that's the one thing. People do as they see someone else does. So, I mean, I think there's little things, and maybe we can explore some of that a bit closer. I think this opened up a good conversation for us to see how we can utilize the platform better in situations like that. I think that's a great question.
I think that's absolutely stunning. And I mean, one can also always just switch off their camera if they really are, if it really is distracting, and then they're listening in, they're still there. It's far better than not being there at all.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Agreed. And I'm sorry to chip in. I saw Lisa also suggested that now, and I think it's a great idea. One thing I'm just afraid of is now I suggested and now it becomes an okay thing, and then half my group's off video and they're doing other things. And, you know, initially the lady who was just a bit moving around, she's the most engaged anyway, but it was just, you know, someone else making a comment or whatever. I don't want to like also create that behavior. I don't know, it's hard.
I agree. Maybe it's a good idea to elevate the idea of Zoom etiquette. You know, that's something that we all aspire to, in order to honor each other and for fellowship, because that's what this is about. That is the glory of this platform, is that, you know, we're not in the same room, but it feels almost as good. And for that to happen, there's certain things we need to do to honor each other.
That's a very good suggestion, and I think we definitely need to start thinking about Zoom etiquette. I like that. You guys must send me your little nuts and pieces. I know that there is a way, and I wouldn't suggest this, but there is a way where you as the host can actually stop someone's video or play someone's video. So if for an instance you feel it's very distracting, that person might not even notice that they were for a minute offline. You can actually stop their video and then just start their video again on their behalf. But I wouldn't really suggest that. But if it comes to that point, that is another option that you do have, just to throw it in there. But again, I think let's give people the ability to do what they want. Michelle?
I just want to say on that note, so if you can stop their video, but if you want to start their video again, it is going to ask them if they want to start their video. So they will notice that you have switched off the video.
Okay. So maybe it's not good if we start acting on behalf of other people, but yeah. And Jackie asked a question, how do we pick yourself up if you are tired or have had a tough day and still need to be high in energy for the group?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because we're multitasking, and we want to be infectious. We've got that time with them, and we don't want to lose it. I think that being proactive beforehand and trying to plan the day ahead of time is really valuable. So if you know you're leading the group to leave the office on time, or to say by this time I'm walking away from my desk or whatever work I'm doing at home, or I'm switching off this so that I can give myself to that, is really important. But even just take a few moments with your eyes closed with a cup of tea, just to be with the Lord is just absolutely important. And I think if you girls are anything like me, I often feel like I'm the victim of time and other people's disorganization and diaries. But the reality is I'm responsible for my time. And often it feels like my time is being managed by other people, but I really can make more decisions sometimes than I care to admit. And often when I'm pressed and I'm feeling under it, and I feel like I've been manipulated around other people's schedules, perhaps, often it's been my own negligence, and I didn't see time ticking, and I didn't use my time as effectively as I could have and as I should have. So I think for me, from my personal experience, is that part of it is realizing where I kind of let time go, and now I'm not ready for this space and position. The other is being able to just stop everything, close my eyes, go and be somewhere quiet, and just draw strength from God and just wait on Him. Perhaps put your earphones in and play a beautiful worship song that you love at the moment. And then the other thing, and I can so testify to this without taking advantage of it, there is so much grace when we step into this position and we say yes to God, I want to be responsible and I want to help look after your people and love your people and help them grow. He gives us such grace. He sees the craziness of our lives. He sees the things that, whip the mat out from under our feet. And he gives us grace to keep leading and to persevere. Not that it's a show, not that we're false or we're putting on a mask, but that he gives us grace to do this. And I really believe God will show himself to you in that way on those really rough, terrible days.
That's amazing, Lisa. And I think if I can add one more thing, I think that's the beauty of us having 2 leaders per group as well. If you really feel like it's like just a tough day and you need a quick prayer, I think take the courage and phone the other leader and say, let's just pray for him 1 minute before we go online. Because that's where we really take each other's hands and we start doing life together. I mean, none of us are above anything. I mean, there's just some days that's not like, it's terrible and things happen. So sometimes it's just to take that courage and phone someone and say, just quickly pray, like 2 seconds, or just take a minute, as Lisa said, and just pray with me. Because sometimes I think there's also power in people praying together. And it would be lovely if the group leaders can also provide that type of structure to each other, I think, within the groups. Are there any more questions from anyone? I know we have like 5 minutes left, but it is such, I think, a good conversation that I would rather leave our admin things and leave like a voice note at the end or something and have this discussion. Tinelu?
Yeah, I would like to ask, because sometimes you find that you have that one negative person through the discussion and you just don't know how to make them shush, not to discourage and demoralize the whole group. How can one handle such a thing?
Yeah, that's the ultimate question, and I guess it depends on the situation. Sometimes the best thing is to actually just meet the person where they're at, and to say, Jackie, I can tell you are feeling so discouraged about that. And things seem to have happened that make you feel really cynical and skeptical about whether God will come through in this situation. Guys, do you mind if we quickly pray for her? Things are just obviously really, really rough. So to almost bring God into that moment straight away and say, can we just close our eyes all together? So sometimes it's coming from a real place. That person's negativity is coming from a place of maybe being disappointed and hurt, again and again, because often it comes from that. I don't believe people set out to be difficult. I believe often stuff happens that leaves us discouraged. And often in ministry moments, what we'll do is we'll say something like, would you be prepared to just hand that burden of doubt and disappointment to the Lord, just to look after for you so that he can get to your heart? You know what I mean? In the sense of, and I often say, you know what, you can take it back afterwards if you like. And they all go, no, I don't want it back afterwards. But because it's real, and they don't. It's almost like when we're in a place of real disappointment, and we've been felt so let down, or when people have prayed for things and it hasn't come through, or they've prayed for healing and then it didn't happen, those kind of places. Often people are in that space to be able to say, and they don't want to just hand it over to the Lord because then it's now gone and they've got, and the reality is God sees those things that have hurt and disappointed me. So when I give them to him for safekeeping, he doesn't just sort of throw them over his shoulder and say, forget about it. He cares about the things that matter to us. He cares about the things that have hurt our hearts and kind of distanced us from being able to trust him. And what he really wants is to get to our hearts. So to be able to say, I'm giving this, and I often say, what does it feel like? Does it feel like a big cloud that's over you? Does it feel like a mountain that you're carrying? Does it feel like, a rucksack with a mattress and pots and pans and, 10 pigs? could you just hand that burden to the Lord, just so that he can come close to your heart and love you, And so sometimes that's the response. Sometimes the response is to say, has anyone got any solutions they can offer, to this person? But to aim to acknowledge it, but deal with it. And when you feel it's absolutely hijacking the conversation, to be able to acknowledge it and say, Sue, I can tell this is absolutely consuming for you at the moment. I'm going to ask if we could park this now and if we could chat a little bit more at the end of the group when others have left the meeting. We're going to pray, but I want to follow up on this, and I'd like to talk to you about solutions and what we can practically do to help. But either way, you can deal with it and love the person and be able to still move on with the agenda of the meeting. I hope some of those ideas are helpful.
Extremely. Thank you so much, Lisa. Michelle, I know you had one more question, and I wonder, Lisa, would you mind if we just open it up and say, if there's any more questions, if they perhaps just send it to me via WhatsApp and I can filter it through to you, then at least we can share it in the group, because I think we all struggle with this, and maybe we should have a second session in a month's time or whatever else. But I think there's so many things that practically that we struggle as facilitators and leaders in these sessions, and many questions. And I think you might have sparked a lot of other things in our minds as well. So if you're okay with, I know I'm putting you on the spot now, but if you are okay with it, so if any of you think of any other questions, send it to us, and then I can filter it back into Lisa, and then I can just, we can share it with, I think, the entire group, because I'm sure whatever you want to ask, everyone actually has a similar type of question. So will we take the last quick one, Michelle?
Lisa, so it's very difficult for me to get the people to actually start talking. So even if you ask them questions, sometimes just nobody will answer you or nobody will say something. So how do you actually create that safe zone that people would want to start talking and just want to start sharing with you? Even if you don't ask any questions, they just want to start sharing and just want to start talking.
I think that starting with kind of icebreakers is always a lot of fun. So, to be able to say, first thing we're going to do is we're quickly going to rate our week, and we're going to say why. How was it out of 10 and why? Or something that made you smile, just made you smile spontaneously, or something that makes you smile. So to get everyone talking and warmed up, then I find you sort of start with more shallow questions and then you go deeper. So to say we're gonna and to say and the other thing is to say, almost like popcorn, we're gonna quickly, I want you to say just one sentence of what you thought of the scripture. I first read it and I thought, Jesus, why would you say that? Okay, now Michelle, you say what did you think, or whatever. So you start almost superficially and get it going again, that rules of engagement. And I think I agree, the word rules sounds quite formal. Maybe it's principles or guidelines for participation is a better way of saying it. So or how does that make you think? What does that make you think? What does that make you feel? What else does it make you feel? To use some of those questions, those clever questions that I gave you, and to go deeper and deeper, and then also just to model the vulnerability, to be able to model it. Well, I'm asking you this question and I'm going to answer it first. And just again to stress, there are no silly answers. We embrace vulnerability. This is a safe zone. But to start a whole lot more honestly and vulnerably. And the other thing, which I didn't mention earlier when we spoke about being flat, and how do we handle it when we're about to start a meeting and we're feeling flat, to actually be vulnerable and say, you know what, I'm feeling so flat. I've had some disappointing news. I didn't sleep well last night. I really had a rough day at work. I know I didn't deliver the way I should have, and I feel like I'm going to be in trouble. I'm just being vulnerable with you, but I'm just leaning into God, and He still has a plan for this time. And just that vulnerability sort of creates an atmosphere where people know they're safe, but they want to grow. And as well as that, they want to support each other in growing. So I think it's starting superficially and going deeper, and it's modeling what you want people to do.
That's incredible. Lisa, thank you so much. I don't even know how to thank you enough. I know everyone has learned so much, and this was really an hour well spent. Thank you very much. So you can all just submit your questions, and then I'll filter it through to Lisa, and we'll just share it on the WhatsApp group. So if you have anything else that you are thinking of, or even during the night, then let us know, and then we can filter that through. So Lisa, thank you so much.